Welcome back to K-DramaHaventv, the place where we dive deep into the emotional, surprising, and sometimes heartbreaking stories behind the stars we love. Today's story is one that has shocked fans, stirred conversations across social media, and left many wondering what is really happening behind the scenes. Young Mei Mei has finally opened up, breaking down as she reveals the horrifying truth about Yulong. If you've been sensing a shift, if you felt something was off in recent weeks, you're not alone. And tonight, we're going to unpack everything that led to her emotional confession and why she said he's not the same anymore. Settle in, because this one is intense. It all started quietly, almost too quietly. For months, fans had been pointing out subtle changes in Yulong's behavior. On screen, he was still the charming, charismatic actor everyone adored, but those who watched closely noticed moments where his smile didn't quite reach his eyes, or times when he zoned out during interviews. At first, people brushed it off, assuming it was just exhaustion from his packed schedule. But the truth, as Mei Mei later revealed, was far darker and far more complicated than anyone imagined. Mei Mei and Yulong had always been close. Their chemistry wasn't just for the cameras, and they often leaned on each other during tough times. So when Mei Mei noticed the changes in him, she felt them deeper than anyone else. She tried to talk to him gently, asking if something was wrong, but every time he would laugh it off, saying he was fine. But she wasn't convinced. He had become withdrawn, unpredictable, and sometimes seemed like he was carrying the weight of something too heavy to share. She tried to respect his space, but as she would later confess, watching someone you care about change right in front of you is its own kind of heartbreak. The breaking point happened during a late-night rehearsal. They were preparing for an upcoming project, and everything was going smoothly until it wasn't. Yulong suddenly froze mid-scene, eyes unfocused, breathing shallow as if he was somewhere far away. Crew members rushed toward him, but Yulong pushed everyone away, insisting he just needed air. Mei Mei followed him outside, worried sick. She found him sitting on the ground, elbows on his knees, hands trembling. When she called his name, he didn't respond at first. It was as though he couldn't hear her. When he finally looked up, his expression wasn't one she recognized. He looked scared, lost, and fragile. She sat beside him, gently placing her hand on his arm. She told him it was okay, that she was there, but he pulled away, saying she shouldn't get close to him. Before she could ask what he meant, he stood up abruptly and walked off, leaving her confused and shaken. That moment haunted her for weeks, and as time went on, these strange episodes only became more frequent. Sometimes he'd go silent in the middle of conversations. Sometimes he'd snap at people he normally treated with kindness. And other times, he would disappear for hours without explanation. The public had no idea what was going on, but behind the scenes, Mei Mei was growing more and more worried. She reached out to his manager, asking if Yulong was getting help, but she was told everything was under control, yet nothing about his behavior suggested control. Mei Mei started blaming herself, wondering if she had pushed him too hard in the past, if she had missed earlier signs, if she could have done more. And that guilt built up inside her until she couldn't hold it in anymore. The emotional moment happened during a live stream meant to celebrate her recent milestone. Thousands of fans joined, expecting the usual bubbly, cheerful Mei Mei. But instead, they got something completely different. At first, she tried to keep up her usual energy, but her eyes looked tired and her smile was strained. Fans immediately flooded the chat with questions, asking if she was okay. And that's when her voice cracked. She took a deep breath, trying to hold herself together, but her hands trembled as she placed them on the table. She apologized repeatedly, saying she hadn't wanted to talk about this publicly, but she couldn't carry it alone anymore. Then she finally said the words that made viewers freeze. He's not the same anymore. She explained that Yulong had been struggling, that something inside him had changed drastically, and she no longer knew how to reach him. She talked about the fear she felt, the helplessness of seeing someone you care about slipping away piece by piece. As she spoke, tears streamed down her face, and her voice shook uncontrollably. Mei Mei revealed that Yulong had been dealing with something deeply traumatic that he never shared openly. She didn't disclose the details, respecting his privacy, but she said it was something that had shattered him, something he had been hiding behind smiles and performances. She said there were nights he called her sounding completely broken, nights he couldn't sleep because the memories were too heavy, and days where the pressure of the industry pushed him to his limits. She had been trying to support him, but she admitted she wasn't strong enough to carry his pain alone. She said the horrifying truth wasn't just what he went through, but the fact that he refused help, isolated himself, and believed he had to fight everything alone. The industry's culture of silence, of pretending to be okay for the sake of public image, only made things worse. Mei Mei said seeing him struggle without reaching out to anyone, not even those closest to him, was the hardest part of it all. At one point during her live stream, she covered her face with her hands, unable to speak. The comments section flooded with messages of love, support, and concern, not just for her but for Yulong as well. Fans begged her to take care of herself, to take a break, to not blame herself. Others urged Yulong to seek help, to know that millions cared about him. It was one of the rawest, most vulnerable moments she had ever shared publicly. After the live stream ended, her agency released a brief statement urging fans to respect her privacy. Yulong's team stayed silent for days, only adding fuel to the growing worry. And during that time, rumors swirled everywhere. Some speculated about burnout, others whispered about past trauma resurfacing. What Mei Mei had said wasn't detailed, but it was enough to show that whatever Yulong was battling, it was serious. Eventually, Yulong's studio released a calm, carefully worded message stating that he was taking time off to rest and focus on his well-being. But those who saw Mei Mei's emotional breakdown knew the truth ran deeper than the statement suggested. Fans noticed that Mei Mei also stepped away from the spotlight for a while, perhaps needing time to emotionally recover from carrying so much on her shoulders. Their friendship, once full of playful banter and lighthearted moments, had taken on a heavy, painful layer. But Mei Mei's confession also showed something important. She still cared deeply, enough to speak out, even when it hurt, enough to ask the world to look beyond the fame and see the human being behind the actor. She wasn't exposing him, she was begging for compassion. And maybe, just maybe, her courage will be what finally pushes Yulong to heal, to let others in, to confront the shadows he's been running from for far too long. Fans continue to hope for his recovery, praying he finds strength, support, and peace. Thank you for watching K-DramaHaventv. If this story moved you, remember that celebrities are